G'day, welcome to the MacPack.
We're back.
My name's Jake McKenna, and to my left this week in order of the bloke on the panel who has introduced us to Gruen at the earliest age. It's my little brother Joe. How are you, boy?
Yes, I watched it on the ABC, the first episode, and I told you about it, and you've been a fan ever since.
Absolutely. And to my right, coming in at 6'1", as he does each and every week, it's the baby brother of the pack, who we call Junior Boy. Junior Boy, how are you?
We're welcoming a very special, yet another comedian to the show. Jake, who do we have today?
We are indeed a genuine icon of Australian comedy. You would have seen him on Gruen. You would have seen him on Question Everything. He's written a plethora of books.
Yes.
He's literally got the most sales at any Melbourne comedy festival of all time.
Hey.
We're obviously talking about Mr. Wil Anderson. Wil, how are you, mate?
I am okay. Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate that. That was a very nice introduction. I was actually sitting back going, who are they talking about?
Let's get into it. Boys,
Brother Mingos.
How are we all? Are we all well?
Stoked to be here.
Couldn't be more excited to be here.
I feel like we was a little bit scared of our high energy. We were so low key.
Jumped out of the
came in.
gate. Most people we have on the pod do feel a bit like that. Like we sit around and we chat for 30 minutes and it's all pretty low key, and then next thing you know, the music starts and something awakens.
You know what? I like
boys.
that though. I appreciate that. There was a performance level that you all went to immediately. It was less about my surprise, because I like that as well, because I think on stage, I am quite high performance
That's
level
true,
as well.
yes.
Whereas off stage, I am low key as well. So I'm fine with that transition. It was more the fact
There was no warning.
there was absolutely no warning. Firstly, I'm 52. My heart might not be able to take shocks like that. Secondly, it's more than I'm worried about. I know how much noise I hear from my neighbours in this hotel room, and I was suddenly like, what are they going to think I've got? They would have seen people bring in the camera equipment, set it all up. I'm in here with three young men. They're like, all right, I've got to get on the internet and report what Wil Anderson's up to.
We were on the way through the car park and we had all the gear, and Joe actually said, because we were about to head into reception,
And I was like, this looks kind of dodgy. I was walking in with a
and
suitcase.
Joe goes, yeah, it looks like we're shooting a small porno at the moment.
I mean, honestly, if people just looked at the setup in here, that is exactly what it looks like. The saddest porno of all time.
We are obviously very excited to have Wil on the podcast. Host of Gruen for 17 years. He's written a plethora of books. He's got so many podcasts. He's the host of Question Everything. And as I mentioned, the most sales for anyone at the Melbourne International Comedy Festival on history.
I mean, that's probably just because I've been doing the festival for 30 years.
We don't need to put an asterisk, so don't put the asterisk.
I think we really do need to.
You want a pro rata rate. Yeah, back down.
Per capita.
We couldn't be more excited to have you on the podcast. Joe, I mentioned off the top that you were the first person to introduce us to Gruen. This is at a very, very early age.
However,
I don't think you even really
this
remember.
is a story that I have no memory of.
How old would you have been at the time?
I think like
Joe?
8.
Yeah.
And I was watching
Because how old are you now?
27.
Yeah, okay. So, you were 10 when we started doing the show.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, okay, so I must
all
have been 10.
Yeah,
I couldn't
so
have been
9
8.
or 10. Yeah, okay, yeah.
Because I vividly remember I accidentally stumbled upon episode 2
Yeah.
because it used to come after. So on the ABC at the time, it used to be Spicks and Specs,
Uh-huh.
and then it would roll into the IT Crowd. And the IT Crowd, as you know, only has 6 episodes per season.
Yeah.
So you're watching IT Crowd for a month and a half, and you expect it to keep going.
Yeah.
At the age of, I think I was 9 or 10 at the time. And then all of a sudden, this other show's on. You're like, I don't really know what this is. And Joe said, no, watch this. This is really good. It's about advertising.
Joe,
And
the
I love-
10-year-old
yeah.
advertising
Film,
buff.
yeah,
And they
TV
say
critic.
the ABC doesn't appeal to young people.
Yeah, exactly. But I've been hooked ever since. I remember Gruen was the first DVD I ever bought. I used to have mates come over in
I mean,
primary school.
that's how long ago we've been doing the show. There's
DVD.
DVDs
Yeah.
available.
Yeah, heading down to the ABC store to
Yeah,
get it.
the ABC store was still a thing.
You could listen to the ABC music. You plug in your headphones
Yeah,
and
that's
listen
right.
in the store.
But no, it
So
was such a wonderful time. I used to have mates come over and we'd literally sit and watch DVDs of Gruen when I was like super young. That was like what we used to do.
That
which
is absolutely not what I imagined was happening.
Yeah, it's not really the target audience at all. So I feel like I'm one of the youngest
Yeah.
Gruen fans getting around.
Yeah, on Thursday, everyone will talk about which pitch they liked best.
But how did Gruen start for yourself, Will? How did you get involved?
So I had lunch in Bondi at a place called the Bondi Trattoria, which is still a restaurant that exists.
Yeah, huge.
Because every time I walk by it, I think about this meeting.
Oh.
And so I was living just down the road at the time, and we'd been doing a show at the ABC called The Glass House,
Yes.
but
Yeah.
it had been cancelled.
Which also has DVDs available. I own a couple.
yeah, the best of. Luckily,
Yeah,
luckily
that's
the
true.
worst of is the rest of is not available because some of it would immediately get me cancelled. I imagine. It was a long time ago. It was a different world. But so I was only a year and a half off finishing doing that, and so we'd been doing that for 6 years, and we'd done like 230 episodes or something of
huge.
it. So it had been a lot of work, and so I wasn't really looking to do something new, but. My manager called me and said, Andrew Denton would like to have lunch with you about like some new idea that he's got. And I was like, well, I'd like to have lunch with Andrew Denton. That idea I wasn't really, I was just like, that'd be fun to have lunch with Andrew Denton. I wasn't looking to, and so we had a chat, and he said, I've got this idea for a TV show. And the pitch was, he said to me, I want to make a TV show that gives people the skills to understand advertising in the way that the TV show Frontline, which was this like old working dog show Frontline, gave people the skills to understand current affairs TV shows. And I thought that's a pretty good pitch. And I remember, but I said, well, what's the show? And he goes, I don't know. It could be a documentary. It could be a comedy panel show. It could be don't know yet. But we've got these books, got this idea, got a name maybe. And so the Gruen transfer was like a name that was already, before there was a show, there was kind of a name, an idea of that there would be this like thing, but it wasn't locked in or anything. And I remember walking back from that meeting and like called my manager and I said, oh, this feels like something. I said, I don't know what this is going to be, but there's something about this that felt like really interesting to me. And I said, I'd be pretty happy to be involved in it. And so that was a surprise to me because I wasn't looking to get involved in anything new. And I'd just taken like my first job in commercial radio at the time. So it's like I was already pretty busy and I was touring a lot, but it just sounded really interesting.
Yeah, cool.
And so then we went into these workshops to try and develop what this show was. And originally it was going to be like a documentary series where I would go to like test advertising or marketing things and blah, blah, blah and whatever. Right. And then we thought it was going to be a comedy panel show, like a Good Newsweek style, but it was just going to be about ads, but it would be with comedians and personalities and things like that. And then we started getting these advertising industry people in and talking to them about like the industry itself. And, I think the first one we really clicked with would have been Russell. Like there was something about Russell that we were just like, oh man, the way that this guy talks about advertising, the way he loves advertising is really fun and funny.
Unhinged.
And it was really un-ABC too.
Yeah, absolutely.
It didn't feel like the typical ABC, we don't have any commercials, this is terrible sort of position. This was more, he was an advocate for the power of advertising and the good that it could do. And then we met Todd, and I think that when we met them, we were like, oh, hang on, how could we make a show that involved these two in some way? And that's where the show eventually, kind of developed into. But if people went back and watched we're about to do series 18 of the show. And if they went back and watched that first series, it is a very different show to what we do now. It has been in constant development over the years because it's always just had that central question at the heart of it, which is just how can we explain the world through the prism of marketing and advertising? So our idea is always that the people in society who really know like what motivates us, like psychologists or whatever will tell you, I know what motivates you. But the psychologists mostly work for internet companies or advertising companies. And they work there because they're trying to motivate you to buy something. Yeah. And the people who understand what motivates us to buy something are advertisers mostly. And so we often think that if you can look at the world through the prism of how we're being sold things, you can find out things about the world that you don't necessarily see through other prisms, I guess.
There you go.
Great answer. Wow, it really took us on a journey. That's awesome. Which you say it's gone through phases through its time. When do you think could be now? What was your favorite part of making the show?
So funny because there's been so many times over the years that I've been like, we're done. This is it. We're done now. This will do. And
Your choice or like ABC's
always,
choice?
I know we've been, I think there was a period of time probably for a decade or more where we were their most successful entertainment show.
Yeah.
And so, no, I think they've always been of the opinion that if we could do it weekly, they'd be happy to have us do it weekly. And in a way, I can understand from their perspective why that would be a compelling thing because there is no other show like it on television still. And it does fulfill a very ABC part of their charter, which is to make something that can't be made on a commercial network.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like this show's, I've pitched this show at like places like Netflix where they were like, we love this show. We would love to make it, but we can't because we work with advertisers and marketers. And if you were on our network shit canning their products, we would not be able to get them to. And so it is the only place it can be made. And I understand their desire to do it. But we also want it to be good. And we think doing it in a limited way and never doing it just because we have to do it, only ever doing it if we feel like we have something new or compelling or interesting to say. So there's been a few times over the years where like, do we have anything new to say? You know, are we going to repeat a conversation? And they're normally the points where we evolve the show. So if we get to the point, the show used to be a lot more category pieces.
Yes.
So like basically, you know, this week we're doing the entire first half of the show will be about how you sell beer or how you sell cars or whatever. Whereas if you watch the show these days, it's a much more dynamic look of like, if you were watching the world this week, here are the 6 most kind of compelling advertising and marketing things that happen. They might be a TV ad, but it might be a Labubu or it might be, you know, like the launch of the World Cup or whatever it might be. These are also big advertising events. And so what we've tried to do is change up the show over the years so that we don't get stuck going. And now in 2026, this is how you sell beer now, which we did have a few of those conversations over the years, I think.
Yeah, I think a good thing about this show when I watch it is like when you do cover stuff, it's like a thing that you've been thinking about as a watcher. You're like, this is something I've noticed without even like, it's like everything in the show is like a topical thing where you're like, yeah, this is a thing that I would have noticed so much it's good to cover.
Yeah, our attitude is always to try and, because there's been also times over the years where we've out-clevered ourselves. You know, you almost try to think about it too much. Whereas I think the thing I always try to say to people is because they're like, how much of it is scripted or whatever? And I said, the panel stuff, none of it. Because what I want is actually them to not be very prepared. Over the years, like we've flirted with different ways of, and they would bring in too much material or too much thought or whatever. If I was on a TV panel show and the topic was, here's a new bit of like 30-second comedy that came out, you could just show it to me and I could probably make a few observations about it that would be things that you kind of half notice, but you didn't fully notice, but I noticed because I look at stuff like that all the day and I can see different things. That's absolutely the same level as I like our advertisers to be at. I don't want them to be 3 steps ahead of everybody else. I want them to be at that point where you look at a thing that we're all looking at every day and you tell us what are the extra things that you're seeing. Or we've noticed that this Woolworths ad, all the bags are green and all the products are green, but what is the reason that all those things are green? That's all I really want from them because that's the level of insight. If it goes too far away, it becomes almost like a university course or an academic lecture. And I think the show is less effective when it's at that and more effective when it's at the next time you see that ad, you will remember the conversation we had about that ad on Gruen, and you'll be able to go, oh, you know, they do this because of that.
Yeah, 100%. To be honest, I studied marketing advertising just with a fair degree as to Gruen being the reason.
Yeah.
They show a lot of Gruen in the universities, in a lot of the classes. And
that is not really the point of the show. The point of the show is to put people off going into advertising and marketing. Like, I've got Todd and Russell both out of the industry. I don't understand why people think there's the same people who watch Breaking Bad and go, I should make meth.
It's feasible.
It's a fun thing for me to do. Oh, I should get married at first sight. Some of these shows are meant to be warnings. But I have heard they show it a lot at university, which is just so
backward.
I mean, it is funny to me, but it is also, I've heard of people like being taught it at school and study at university, and you never imagine when you set out, and we certainly never think about it when we make the show, that this is a thing that people will be like studying or watching in university. I had a mother in the show the other night, two nights ago, and I asked her the question, I ask everyone, which is just tell me anything that you're happy to share with me. And she said, my son is in advertising and marketing because he used to watch Gruen when he was growing up. And I said, well, the show isn't really made for people in advertising and marketing. And she goes, no, he has stopped watching. Now he's in it. And I was like, yeah, because it's quite mean to people who are in it.
Exactly. Will hates my ad.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. And often, like, I will get a heads up too on like afterwards, never before. But it's always, there are certain people, it's like even with our team now, they find it really funny because we, on a Wednesday, so our show tapes on a Tuesday night, and then we have the meeting for the next week's show on a Wednesday at lunchtime before the Wednesday night's gone to air. That's our kind of schedule. And so when they're showing me, mostly I haven't seen, like I'm watching most of the things we're going to see in that Wednesday meeting. I've not seen any of them. They're being presented to me by like the team who've been off, finding things and researching things and whatever, right?
Yeah.
And they all have inside jokes about, various ways that I'll react to certain things. But there is one company that is one of the most successful advertising companies in the entire world that regardless of like what ad they make, I hate it. and it's never because I know. It's always that thing where I will just be like, oh, what is this? This makes no sense. What is blah, blah, blah? And people start to laugh and I'm like, oh, no, it's not. And they're like,
Oh, brilliant. How do you deal with, I guess, feedback that you receive? You've done some radio stuff over the journey, Triple J Breakfast in particular.
Yes.
We've had some Triple J Breakfast alumni. You must be the 4th or 5th person we've had from Triple J on
We've
the
had
pod.
Matt O'Kine, Liam Stapleton,
Conchetta.
and Conchetta.
And all fantastic, but the text line often comes up as quite a topical part of the job.
See, well, this is the advantage of being old.
Landline.
There was no text. They had the facts in their complaints, so it wasn't quite as biting when they weren't coming in real time, when they had to write a letter and then 3 days later they were complaining about something you couldn't even remember what it was you were talking about. We actually answered our own phones.
Yes.
So, because we only had one producer, so if we were doing a talkback topic of any kind, so we'd go to a song, we pose the question, we go to a song.
Yeah.
And so Adam, myself, and our producer, we all just answer the phones. We would just sit there answering the phones and putting them on hold. And so you would often get a lot of direct feedback about the job you would do it because they wouldn't think you were the person answering the phone. So they were like, what's this dickhead on air talking about? And I'm like, I am that dickhead. Here's what I'm talking about. So I think people have been empowered around mean feedback by the internet. I don't think in life it's rare that anyone ever comes up to you and tells you something mean. And and even if you disagree with somebody, like, you sit on the train with people you disagree with all the time and you're nice to them and you're polite to them because you're not in an environment, you're sharing a space and you're all trying to do the same thing and whatever it might be. The internet has just kind of empowered that immediate feedback, and you've got a radio station that it's predominantly for younger people. So you're asking people who are like forming their opinions to be engaged with what it is that they are. It's very wide ranging. So there's going to be people have such a personal connection to Triple J. I mean, the tough thing is that at the time, like, they're the people who will be like, the joke was always, I mean, Tom Ballard used to, joke it all the time, bring back Adam and Will, right? But for the people who come after, it was bring back Tom and Alex, or it was bring back Matt and Alex, or it was bring back whoever it was. For us, it was bring back, Mikey and Paul, or like the Sandman, or whatever it was. It was always the one just before you that was the good one, right? And then when you leave, it'll be you that was the good one, but you won't be there to get any of that. You don't actually get any of the bit where people think you were the good one. You've moved on by that point. It's only the next people who hear that you were the good one.
People hate you at your new job now.
Yeah, that's right. They're like, oh, bring back the people that were here before you. Like, oh, hang on.
How did you get your start on Triple J?
So, well, firstly, there was a false start. So I got a little job. I'd been doing stand-up in Melbourne, and one of the morning show reporters got me to do a little weekly segment.
Yeah, cool.
And it turns out, though, it was just one of those things that was put together with someone who didn't quite understand what you needed to make it work, which was, so they wanted to me to do a little like wrap of the news of the week sort of thing, couple of minutes. And I was like, great. But in a situation like that, you've got to interact with somebody. You've got to have someone to bounce off. You've got to have like someone to laugh or at least like give it a bit of a vibe. You cannot just pre-record it and play it out and think that people are going to like that.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's what they wanted to do. So that's what we did. And it did not go well. And then they did not have me back. So that was it. It was like one thing. The jokes were great. And I stand by it because like there were literally jokes in that act that I did for like years afterwards.
Right.
Like it was, I had put so much work into it. So I got good use and whatever, but it was just it was the wrong environment for, for that to be part of it. So I thought that was going to be my only ever association with Triple J. But then Adam and Spencer and I did an episode of Good News Week together, and he was doing his radio show in the afternoon at the time at Triple J. And he asked me to come in the next day and just hang out for a couple of hours to just kind of fill in time and, have a laugh. And then so when he went to breakfast, he just had regular guests. He would have like weekly guests on the show. And so like segment guests. And just I was doing it from Melbourne, like sitting in a little TARDIS booth, like a tiny little booth in Melbourne by myself, just down the line doing it. But each week those bits would become bigger and bigger. And I guess for whatever reason, Adam and I had a rapport. And so then they just said to me, they said, look, in the year 2000, they said, we've got the rights to the Olympics, the ABC, the Sydney 2000 Olympics, which means that we'll be able to broadcast from the opening ceremony and from like out there and whatever. So would you consider moving up to Sydney to do the show full time with Adam? And I was like, yeah, I guess I will. But it was pretty quick. It was like one of those things where they just like it certainly wasn't something that I was working towards. It wasn't like I was thinking, oh, this will be like something that was on. I was in Melbourne doing stand up and very happy with how my life was going. And then they were suddenly like, do you want to move to Sydney? And I just assumed I'd move to Sydney for, however long I did the show, but I ended up staying there for over 20 years.
Unreal.
Yeah.
That's interesting because the initial job you said, the little 5-minute segment thing, you studied journalism, correct?
Yeah.
So you had that perfect mix of comedy and journalism.
Well, that's what they thought too, but it turns out it was not the perfect mix that they were looking at. There was a mix. There was definitely a mix, but it was not described as perfect.
when you started Gruen, was there any scrutiny? Like do you have any like background in marketing or making ads or anything like that? Or did people like come at you as if like, who even is this guy?
Yeah, it's a good point, isn't it?
He's rinsing my ad, but like, has he ever made one? Did you ever get that feedback?
No, and the truth of it is that my perspective, and I've never done anything as an advertising expert either. So it's funny, sometimes you have rules for yourself that other people would not give like one crap about whether it's a rule or not.
Okay.
But I never present myself as a marketing expert. So if I get rung by, say like ABC Radio rings me and they're like, hey, we want to do a segment on the Super Bowl ads. Can you come in and run through the Super Bowl? I would never do that because I'm not a marketing expert.
And do people do that? Do people ask
all the
you to
time?
do?
Yeah. Anytime there's a new ad out, blah, blah, blah. Can you come on and like blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I don't do that. So Gruen, the whole point about the way we operate that show is that the experts talk about the ads. I just make fun of them in the way that a voice of the people would do it.
Yeah.
My role on that show is to ask them, why is this or whatever, but then make fun of it in the way that like someone who's in the ABC audience who is watching that ad would make fun of the ad. Yeah. So I'm never going, oh, this is technically not good because of this, or this is not. I'm just like, this is dumb. Why?
Well, that's so good. And now that you've had like 18 years of making the show, like you do have that level, but you still hold off, which I think is like.
Well, I think
awesome.
I have really tried desperately to, and I think, and I mean this genuinely, for $1 million, if you offer me $1 million right now, I'm not sure that I could name 4 advertising companies.
Okay.
I've really tried to never
stay in the dark.
To never learn. Anytime we're having a conversation on the show about advertising and marketing, the industry, it gets cut out. We never talk about industry business. We never talk about like what the blah, 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 what the trends are, that. We talk about marketing, advertising and marketing through the messages and what it means about like society. But we're not really a show about advertising and marketing. We're a show that talks about the world using advertising and marketing. And so my limited expertise, if there is some, is I have a lifetime of doing work that is in the that little window of curiosity between how does the world work and what is being presented to us. And so that's where the journalism or advertising and marketing background, communications is my degree technically, is like, there is some kind of skill set in doing that, but I have always tried to keep it as in like, I am really trying to ask the question of like, that's a weird way to say that line. Why is that?
Yeah.
You know, that I shouldn't be really going, I see that KFC has a long history of blah, blah, blah. No, that's not really my, job on the show.
With that said, do you have a favorite ad?
No, I don't think I've ever seen a good one. And I've seen more than most people.
Yeah.
Like this is the thing that like it's the curse of why it's so funny because I think I am like I would never watch Gruen. I don't think if I
And do you ever?
no, I've never seen a full
living it.
episode, I don't think.
Wow.
And I wouldn't watch it, I don't think, if I was it's just not my sort of show to watch. But I think also this is one of the things that we sometimes get wrong, which is what we like to consume. Isn't necessarily always what we like to make. We can have very different tastes when it comes to those things. And sometimes what you like to consume can almost be a direct response to what you like to create or vice versa. Or like you might create something because a lot of the time the things that I create come out of like, observations or frustrations about how things do or don't work. Whereas like what you like to consume might not be that sort of thing. I am a person who lives the weirdest life of all because I mostly try to avoid advertising and marketing for 8 months of every year. It's something that I mostly loathe. And then for 4 months of the year, I watch more of it than anybody else in the entire world. And I have done in some sort of weird psychological experiment for the last 18 years. So like, if you really think about that, for 18 years, 4 months of the year, I go into a room and watch like every ad that is presented to me, have to dissect it. And then for 8 months of the year, try to not watch any of it or pay any attention to it at all.
Algorithm sitting there being like, this guy's been in a coma for like 8 months.
And every year.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
why is he so hyper obsessed
When he
about
wakes
like this one topic right now?
Boys, we're still here with Wil Anderson, obviously one of the greatest comedians we have in Australia, maybe in living history.
Oh, shut up. Don't get me wrong. I appreciate that I have done this show for you. And you're like, you know what? This is pretty good that he has actually done this. But I would have thought the fact that I've said yes to this probably means I'm not one of the greatest comedians in living history. I would have thought that if you're one of the greatest comedians in living history, that you probably have better things to do with your day off.
So did I.
and so humble too. I remember the first show I saw you do. I think it was the first show I ever went to.
2014?
Yeah, in 2014. It was the
It was so good, in fact, that I went the day before and then told him to go. So
Wow.
yeah, it was the Matt Damon one.
Oh my God. All right. Okay. Well, Millennium. Right? Yeah. Anyway,
I don't remember the pun. Yeah.
You know what? I've got to be honest with you. I'm surprised I did.
Yes.
But I do remember that exact show because it was the first time James Fosdyke, who does my posters, that was the first one of those that he did the real big proper poster for.
Mm-hmm.
And it was incredible because at the time I was living in LA and the backdrop of that poster is like so it's got a road in the middle of it and half of the road is like LA and he's like drawn in like half of the road to LA and half of it is Sydney, the Enmore Theatre and whatever in incredible detail.
Right.
But then all these people are on the poster with like my haircut walking forward and he got real fans of mine, like I don't know how many, 50 or 100 or whatever, sent them their photos and he drew them into the poster.
Jeez.
So there are literally like 50 or 100 like fans of mine who were like drawn into that poster for that show, which is
cool.
and the backdrop for that show, that's why I remember that.
Yeah, that's it. I loved it because especially like it also did kind of, I guess, lift my expectations for stand-up because even still now I love ones where it's the whole show is like a story, one concept, and like pulling it all into one thing. I love that.
That style of storytelling is something that, like, I mean, my storytelling has always kind of been in that zone. Like there are plenty of different ways to tell a story, but I've always, and it's not necessarily exactly true, but the way that I describe it often is I really only have one story that I want to tell you, but what are all the things so for example, something happened last week here in Perth where I was a block away from, there was an incident on the January 26th where there was a potential like bomb, it didn't go off luckily, but they thought it could have been a mass casualty event. I was only a block away at the movies at the time and then walked into the city and a whole bunch of things happened, right? So that story if that's a story that I wanted to tell in a show, so say it's that story, then the show is just all the other things you need to know to fully understand that story. So I would need to tell you a bit about Perth and what my relationship with Perth is. I need to tell you that like what movie I was seeing that day and why I was seeing that movie, or why I was trying to avoid the protests that were happening that day, or why I was away, or whatever it might be. I've got to tell you the fact that the reason that I went into where the protests were was I needed to buy a mattress protector. So I've got to tell you about the hotel that I'm staying in and why I need to get this mattress protector and these sort of things. And so what ends up happening is that you then start to think about, and so, okay, what are the themes of this show? Well, the themes are maybe that, the theme is that I'm oblivious to the world, or maybe that I'm disengaged with what's going on, or maybe the themes are about terrorism or bombs, or maybe the themes are about hanging on to the dream of staying in a hotel for so long, or your body breaking down, or, there could be any of these. None of these are the right or wrong answer. These are just how you might start thinking about telling that story, or what the things could be that but when I end up telling this story and I tell you I was in the movies, you're going to know why I was in the movies and what it was like. When I tell you, you're not just going to know that I was in the movies, you're going to know that I was in the movies trying to eat a nacho chip really quietly because the movie didn't have enough places for me. You're going to know all these details. And so you're going to be able to picture each bit of that as I go into this scenario. And therefore, when I tell you the story that I really want to tell you, hopefully you know all the things that you need to know. Last year's show, or the last touring show I did, which was a couple of years ago, which was Wil Legitimate, which was literally about, it was kind of a show about turning 50 and my dad turning 80, but it was really just a show about us getting a present for my dad for his birthday, and through getting that present, finding out something about him that I didn't know. That's the story that I wanted to tell in the show. But to really understand that, you've got to know where I grew up and what my relationship was with my dad and why my dad is a hard person to buy presents for and blah, 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 blah. And if I can tell you all those things properly and then get to the story that I want, by the time I get there, you're not just hearing this story about a birthday present. You know why he's hard to buy for and why it was important to get a present and who this person was. That's what I'm trying to do when I tell a story.
That's interesting, because lots of people say, especially with comedy, when you're telling a story, cut out all the fat, get to the good bits, don't waste people's time. But you're finding the fat and you're finding the funniness in the fat.
Yeah, the fat's the good bit. Watch a cooking show. The minute the fat's where the flavor is, right? Like, you ever see anyone cook? Like, if you anyone says to you, what's the secret to this? And they're like, why do scrambled eggs taste better when they're butter? Why does this Vegemite scroll taste better? Cheese. Like, the fun's in the fat, you know? And I've never been of the opinion, yes, there is a version of comedy which is get to the punchline as efficiently as possible. Yep, that's a version of comedy. That is a style of comedy. And so there are comedians who use that style who are some of the greatest comedians of all time. But then there are other comedians that are like, the fun is the fat. Like that to me, like the fun is the whatever. That's why I love doing the improv shows. I'm really still trying to do the same thing. I'm trying to work out, where's the fun here? Like, what's the main part of this meal? But also, what's the garnish and what's the fat? Because that's going to be as important to me as sometimes the lesson isn't what you thought the lesson was going to be. The lesson is the thing that happened on the way.
Yeah. I watched some gala show that you did, maybe 2003, come up on my YouTube feed during the week. The way that you have progressed in your stand-up comedy has very much changed. You seem a lot more curious now than you were back then, which is understandable. It was 20 odd years ago. Was that an intentional shift, or is that just something that has gradually taken place over time?
I think there's a couple of things probably at play here, which is one, there's probably a period of time in your life, very natural, particularly like in your sort of mid-20s to mid-30s, where, you've started to form a whole bunch of your own ideas, and you might be more didactic about like things being right or wrong than you perhaps, you get older and things get more grey again, things are much more complex. But funnily enough, I do think that comedy used to be much more black and white. I hate this, I love this. And the more you do it, the more you realize that it can be more rich than that. It can be more complex than that. It can be more complicated than that. Even in my, the improv shows, they're not roast shows. People think that like crowd work shows need to, by the nature of being like, you've got dumb shoes. That's a funny hat, but that's not what the style of show that I do when I'm doing that sort of thing. So you can do them in different ways. I think that I have developed and changed and wanted to do things that are more complex. But I also think that part of it is as simple as when you're doing a gala spot, you are tending to take like they're 4 minutes probably, like maximum 3 or 4 minutes you're asking. So you're taking one point of view or one perspective, and that's all you have time to kind of introduce and explore effectively in that short period of time.
Yep.
Whereas if you have an hour, so like if you think about Wil Anderson, which was 2014, right? Like that show is about me remembering a story that I was not involved in. Right? That is actually the reveal of that show. So that show does deal with like quite complex themes around like whether, you know, like what you believe is real or whatever. So like, I think I think sometimes if you went back and looked at the shows that bit of stand-up came from, they probably were much more complex, maybe not as complex as what I'm trying to do now.
Yeah.
But I think that level of me trying to like find the right and wrongs or each side or like play off them, you know, I remember, you know, some of my favorite lines over the years have been, I remember having a joke about the, you know, Cronulla riots, you know, where like, you know, the line was around people like, you know, I said, you know, these people were down like on the beach hitting people with baseball bats and saying, you're un-Australian, you're un-Australian. And I said, and I would say, no, you're un-Australian. And the room would be kind of like, yeah, right on, you know, this is, you know, look, you know, like, So, I mean, use cricket bats. Like, I mean, this is Australia. What are you using base? You know, like the joke is like, I mean, obviously I'm not saying that they should use, but the point being the joke is about the complexity of like, you know, if you're just telling people exactly what you think, I mean, sometimes you can tell people what you think by telling them what you don't think, you know, by pulling the rug from under them. So I always think that there was probably that complexity was there. And I think that like gala spots are much harder to be complex within because of the shorter nature of it. But I do think I am much more interested in complexity now than I was when I first started. And I think that's probably the same mostly. Is everyone starts out a bit black and white anyway. That's the easiest way to make a joke, right?
Yeah.
This is dumb. This is shit. I hate this. This is a dumb thing that people do. And then you hopefully, well, some people always stay like that and they're really good at it, right? Like, I mean, you'd argue that like a Bill Burr or whatever is in a way still doing that, but Bill is doing it about much more complex subjects and perhaps, you know, I remember seeing Bill Burr yelling about like people eating avocado 20 years ago and now that, you know, it's the same jokes, but they're about much more kind of complex and interesting things. And maybe you can make the same argument with the Tom Gleeson or whatever, but even like I've watched someone like Tom develop what might seem to some people as being the same comedic point of view, but if you actually watch it closely, you've seen it like, you know, develop over the years. I think in a world where comedy has become so ubiquitous and it is everywhere and everybody has access to be able to do it, then how do you differentiate yourself from everyone who is doing it? To me, complexity. Yeah. Complexity is the differentiation. Complexity is the bit where you're like, I'm trying to push myself into an area that isn't black and white or isn't as like, you know, I believe this, or taking something that you think you believe. Like one of my rules of the improv show is react and then examine your reaction. So sometimes I will say something and then go, oh, that's not what I think. Or that's not why did I say that? Because that's actually the opposite opinion. Or say what I used to think and then examine whether it is still a thing
that's fair.
that I think is true.
Yeah.
And I like that. I think that's a fun. So yeah, I think it is. I think the answer about complexity is complex in itself, but I think that's good too.
Chatting about black and whites, you often come out to, well, you always come out to Back in Black by AC/DC.
Yeah.
Where does that come from?
Dave Grant was my Dave Grant, rest in peace, was an iconic Australian comedian who now has not been with us for, way too long. It turns out 20 years? That can't be right. Hopefully that's not right, but it might be. Anyway, it's been a very long time since Dave was with us, and he was taken well before his time, although I guess I'm probably older than he was, I think, when, or around the same age now. And he was just one of those guys who was like the king of, back when comedy was running away, the Join the Circus and just playing rooms, he was like one of those guys that, people wouldn't really know Dave Grant very well, never did a lot of TV and stuff, but he was a really great working comedian when I first started, and he used to love Back in Black as his intro music. And when he died, I adopted it with permission, his family and stuff would come and see me do my shows, and still do actually, like, which is incredible. Like his wife and kids and stuff have kept a connection with coming to see my shows. And I've spoken about Dave a couple of times over the years within shows. I think in Wil Legal, I actually tell the story of like, you know, of Dave and the music and where it comes from. And so so basically, when he started, I used to actually, when he died, I used to write on my finger, on my hand, what would, you know, just the abbreviations, but what would Dave Grant do? Because it was always that thing of like, I never saw him have a bad gig. It just didn't matter what the environment was. He would always go out there and just try to make it the best gig he could ever have. And I think particularly earlier on in my career, you know, I had a problem with, if you know, this is what part of what I love about these improv show is, like, it teaches you to just learn of like whatever the conditions are, you've got to adapt to the conditions. And early on in my career, I think, you know, I wasn't as adaptable to new conditions as I would have liked to be. And like this Dave thing, so the Back in Black came from that idea of going, you know, like every night when you hear that music, this could be the best show you've ever done, you know? And it does. It still has that effect on me. It still has that effect on me of like every night when I hear that, I'm like, there's just never a sense of, you know, I'm going to just get through this one or phone this in, or this isn't going to be, you know, and it just teaches you that lesson of like, it doesn't have to be the full room that's the best one. It doesn't have to be the night when, or you know what? Just it started weird, doesn't mean it has to finish weird. You know, I think I was one of those people early on who, like, if it started a bit weird, that would kind of be the
it would stay weird.
It would stay weird. You know, I didn't have the capacity to like change my luck. You know, I didn't have the capacity as like a batsman to get through like a tough first session where the ball was doing a bit. You know, I would like play a bad shot and get out. You know, but these days I think I've got a bit more of like the perspective about like going, no, just like, you know, get the shine off the ball and start playing your shots and everything will be okay. And a lot of that was that David Grant stuff still to this day.
Yeah, cool.
Do you have a best gig?
It's funny, if you talk to comedians, I bet it's like if you talk to comedians, I'll be able to tell you their 20 worst.
What's your
in every
worst?
detail.
Worst or best? You can pick which one you want to divulge.
Well, I would normally tell the worst just because that's like what comedians will do. But what's the best gig that I've ever done? Oh, that's a more interesting question about like what the best gig that I've ever done.
Because it could be based on you, it could be the crowd, like you said.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would absolutely have to do with, I can't remember one in particular, but I remember like a week. So I was
had a big week.
Well,
He's
just-
He's
on
the greatest
fire.
ever.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. But it kind of, it is what. So I was in Denver. I was in Denver, Colorado, and I did a week at a comedy club called Comedy Works in downtown Denver during like all I remember was it snowed constantly. Like it was one of those trips where I couldn't leave. They have a comedy condo. So instead of you staying in a hotel room, this is the condo that like the comedian that is there for the week they stay in. And I was in downtown and I couldn't leave this condo basically for the entire week because all it would do was snow but Denver had legal weed. So there was something you could do while you're inside at least. But this club is a great club, but I don't know what happened. But all I can tell you is I got more standing ovations in that 1 week in Denver than I have had, I reckon, in the rest of my career combined. And I still can't, to this day, necessarily tell you about what it was about that week of shows. But I just never had a bad show. They were all just like great shows. I think it was that they were all sold out. And I think it was a real combination of there was enough people in the room who were there to see me, but I reckon maybe only about 10% of the room. Let's just say 10% of the room were there to see me, but that was enough. And then the other 90% were there because this was a good club that just had good comedians and they were booked. And that is almost the best gigs you can possibly do as a comedian, because what you really want is the expectation gap, right? Because like if somebody comes and sees my show now and it's a 9 out of 10 show, I mean, they probably expected it was going to be 7 or 8 out of 10, right?
Yeah.
Like that's what they've come for. Like that's kind of what they paid the money for and like went out of their house for. So it's hard to like, this night, I reckon there were a lot of people who went in going, I'll be fine if this is a 4. You know, we're just going for a night out. And then when it was an 8 or a 9 or maybe even a 10 or whatever, they thought they were suddenly like, this guy's the greatest comedian of all time.
There you go.
Yeah, one day someone's going to say that on a podcast.
Alrighty, boys, we're here with Denver's favourite comedian, Wil Anderson.
True.
I
hope they still talk about me, honestly.
You should have seen a
I'm
whole
around
week.
town, they're like, he's never been back, but it was amazing.
You're scared to go back.
With every guest that comes on to the podcast, and we're fortunate enough to have in person, we like to play a little game with them. Today's game is all centered around Wil Anderson and his love for the Western Bulldogs.
Wil Andersons of the West. Which fact is true? We'll ask these nuffies questions and see just how they do. The boys will guess and we will score. We'll put them to the test. Facts about wit and Libber or Bontempelli. Let's see who's the very best.
So the game is pretty simple. I've got some facts and some stories about some Western Bulldogs players.
And I just have to work out if they're true or not. Is that what's
You
going
have to
on?
work out, some form of information
Something.
around them.
Information.
A bit of context
All right, some context.
for everyone listening, mainly for everyone listening. I think you'll know all of this well. But every one of your comedy shows, like the last 20, probably more, 20 plus years, it's always a pun. It's always a Wil pun.
True.
So we went with an Anderson pun for that one.
Okay.
As you can.
Will's too easy.
as
So
you
we
heard.
did Andersons of the West.
Yeah, that's good. That's very good, actually. I like it. Yeah, well done. Thank you.
It took,
Probably
it
just
took
wanted the
years.
kudos.
Yeah. But you were a club ambassador for the Western Bulldogs in 2014. Is
It's
that
true. I'm actually a member of a coterie group now. So,
What does that mean?
yeah, I know. I don't know either. Power broker. Yeah, I'm a power broker down at the club. There's actually a
List
group.
management.
There's a group.
Right? Yeah.
There's a coterie group. Each club has coterie groups, and often they're like prominent supporters or business people or whatever it might be who are making like contributions to the club. You get a little you might get to like have a sit down with the coach or like special access on game day or like some special events that they organise, for the whatever. Anyway, here's what I'm going to say is I've been involved in this coterie for 2 years, and I am never available for any of the fun things that they do. And they are having a ball because I am in the WhatsApp group and it is popping off. Half of them went to training up in Queensland with the boys like a week ago. They all got invited up and they hung out with them on their preseason training trip and they all went to training and stuff.
Wow.
Oh, yeah, they're having a good time. I'm in Perth entertaining people and they're all hanging out with the Bond.
You're with us.
Yeah.
Who's going to play? Are you going to play with it?
I think we'll all play.
I love
Okay,
it.
yeah, let's do it.
First question is simple. Tom Liberatore has a plethora of tattoos, but what tattoos does he have on his biceps?
Oh,
Wil
his
Anderson.
bicep. Oh, I don't know.
I think I know it.
man.
He's got one on either
Bart
bicep.
Simpson. He's got a Simpsons one.
Yeah, I think
Yes.
it's Homer.
Homer. Oh, Homer Simpson, is it?
He's got Homer Simpson on one
Oh.
and the greasy kid on the other. The
Mr. Wembley, I've done it again.
yeah, the Homer Simpsons.
Yeah.
And, oh my God, you're greasy.
That's right. Yeah. Okay, right.
Do you have any tattoos yourself?
I have one tattoo. Yes.
The greasy kid.
It's the 2016 Western Bulldogs grand final.
Oh.
No, I don't.
Oh.
No, I'm not a tattoo guy. I've got the 2021 losing grand final tattoo. That's the real grand final, the one that happened in Western Australia. That's the only one I respect.
Yeah.
Number 2, ex-Bulldogs player, West Coast player, and Saints player, Kobe Stevens.
Oh,
Apparently had his car broken into last year.
okay.
Can you remember or recall what they took?
Stolen.
Oh, my God. From Kobe Stevens.
Can you remember Kobe Stevens?
Yeah, I can remember Kobe Stevens. What did they take from Kobe Stevens' car?
It's got to be something rogue, but not that rogue, but it didn't make like front. Of
Yeah,
the
that's
news.
true.
Yeah.
Like if it is what they took from Jamara's car, might have made some more headlines.
Yeah.
Kobe's car, it might have just been his doll diary or something. What did they take from his car? It can't have been premiership memorabilia or anything like that. It would have been a couple of old footy records.
Apparently,
A vape?
Apparently, it was a hard drive that he said was worth $1
hard
million
drive. $1 million hard
Oh.
drive.
because it had footage on it of his documentary that he's doing on concussion.
Oh, I do
Oh.
remember.
Which I find
Someone has stolen his concussion documentary from his car.
Is it an
Wait, is
inside
this
job?
a-
Is it the
Oh,
AFL?
man. This feels like conspiracy
Was
theory.
this discussed in the coterie group chat?
I reckon I should drop this in the chat and see if anyone's got any theories, to be
Yeah,
honest
I
with you.
did.
This feels like an inside job.
They're gonna do
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Feels like someone is involved in the AFL integrity union.
Yeah, exactly.
Jump-
He's also put $1 million on it. Is that just an
Yeah.
insurance thing to be like, yeah, that $40 hard drive was worth $1 million.
I mean, I would say, like, don't keep it in your car.
Yeah.
If it's worth $1 million, keep it on you at all
or maybe
times.
back
in a
it up.
safe place. I mean, this might be proof that he's got concussion. That he's keeping something so valuable in his car. This might be the proof he needs.
Number 3, Will Minson is said to know how to speak a different language outside of English, and he also can play an instrument.
Flute.
Can either of you guess what?
Isn't it
either
flute?
am I?
It's flute, isn't it?
I've got saxophone.
Oh, yeah, it might be saxophone.
Same thing.
I thought he could play the flute, but I might be wrong.
Not sure.
I might just be having like a Mandela effect. And in my
Have you
memory,
seen him play
he
the
plays the
flute?
flute. Maybe it is saxophone. I don't know.
You can also speak German, apparently.
Oh,
That's
wow.
Can you
always a bit
speak any other
sus.
languages?
No.
You can't. Have you got any other fun skills?
No, I
outside
don't
of-
actually. I have no skills. I can
None
I can
at
do
all.
every second letter of the alphabet, but only one way. So A, C, E, G, I, K, M, O, Q, S, U, W, Y, but I can't do the B, D, F one version.
How does that come to be?
Yeah.
From when we were at high school in year 11 in maths, they used to make us do the left-hand side of the equations in the like maths books. They just
yeah.
like, they'd be like, do your problems, but you can only just do the left-hand side ones. So they were always A, C, E, G, K.
Oh, my
Learning
God.
English in a
Y.
maths class.
Yeah, but not B, D, F.
Yeah,
whatever.
learning
I'd
some
never do
English.
that. Yeah.
Just 50% of
No.
English.
Only half. I can do half the alphabet.
Number 4, Ling John
Oh, yeah.
famously missed the 2016 AFL Grand
Yeah.
Final because he injured his collarbone against West Coast. But in an effort to get picked for that Grand Final,
Yeah.
he played in the VFL Grand Final where he won the
Yes.
best on.
Oh, wow.
What clever tactic helped him get through the
He
match?
taped the other shoulder.
He did.
Oh.
He strapped up the left shoulder after he
Yeah.
hurt the right collarbone
That is
That is
actually
good.
genius.
Yeah.
and just got ran through.
I mean, it's a,
Probably the other one.
Yeah, you know.
The other with no collarbone.
yeah, that's why he didn't get picked.
yeah. Trying to find his shoulders. They're sitting around his hips.
Yeah, he's wincing in pain when they put the medal over him. Wow.
And lastly, what is Cody Waitman's biggest and most public hobby?
Well, he loves skateboarding, but he actually likes painting art. He's an artist, and he mostly paints skateboards. So he's really combined a couple of his things that he really likes.
Wow.
So good.
you go.
What's your favorite hobby? You mentioned before you don't really have any big dog hobbies.
Gotta be
Well,
something.
I go to gigs actually.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, so I'm a gig person. So I do love to go to concerts, and I love to go and see stuff, even sometimes that like isn't necessarily on my radar. Like I love to obviously go and, but I will go and like I went to see an hour and a half of Ed Sheeran.
Yes, I heard this.
Yeah,
yes.
it goes for 3 hours. So I feel like I got the gist. Although I did hear that, like I did hear about the next 40 minutes of it just as I walked from the stadium back into town because it was like a nice clear night. And I was like, oh yeah, okay, I would have liked that song. But I was a good 30 minutes away from the stadium at that point. So.
Too good. Thank you for playing.
Wil Andersons of the West.
Which fact is true?
We'll ask these nuffies questions.
And see just how they do.
The boys will guess and we will score.
We'll put them to the test.
Facts about wit and Libber or Bontempelli.
Let's see who's the very best.
Alrighty, boys, it is time for our favourite weekly segment. It's our only weekly segment. It's time for our Everyday Hero. And as we do with every guest that comes on the pod, we like to ask them if they could provide us with a hero. Will, do you have an everyday hero?
Yeah, I'm going to actually give a shout out to some. So I'm like, I won't go into the full details, but like in my life at the moment, there's some like pretty complicated and tough things happening. And sometimes your friends, like when things like that are happening, are looking for ways to help, but you don't really know how to help. And I've been in that same scenario myself where you're like, I want to help someone, I want to reach out, but I don't want to intrude. I had a friend, so I've got a whole bunch of stuff in storage that like mostly just needed to be like, you know, given to someone in a like, you know, if someone wanted it or like, you know, like given to like a charity or any of that. And they went into my storage and like
Rated it.
just rated it. Well, basically rated it. I
Toby
guess.
Stevens, mate.
Yeah.
I was robbed.
I was robbed, and I had a drive in there that was worth $1 million, and I can't
that I
believe.
snagged from a car.
I mean, it's a good point. Maybe they just stole some stuff from me, but no, they went in and they cleared out my storage for me, apart from everything that left the stuff that I needed and got rid of everything else, which would have been such a labor intensive and tough thing for me to do. And it was just like the nicest gesture of somebody going, I can't practically help with what you're going through, but I can practically help with something else in your life.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do it. And look, yes, they probably kept a couple of my things, but that's okay. I'm happy with that.
It's like a tax knockoff.
That's actually a good one to suggest, because when you're cleaning your own stuff, everything you see, you're like, oh, this is from that time. Oh, what a great day. But they're like, yeah, whatever. Why the fuck does he have this?
This is just a dumb broken lamp. I've got no memories attached to this at all.
That's true. There's no sentimental value behind it.
Yeah, that's actually a good idea to do each other's stuff.
Yes.
Get rid of all my crap for me.
Yes, I mean, you did. That's the problem, right? Because you go to like Marie Kondo, you shouldn't be able to Marie Kondo your own house. You should have a Marie Kondo swap program with someone else, where you put like a label on something, that everything that you're not willing to throw out. Like that's fine. You can label things, because the problem is you can do it at that point, but it's when you're about to throw it out. You just need to get out of the house and let someone come in and go, nah, this is going. Yeah, you don't want to see it smash. You throw it in and you're like, I'll get it out again. It's okay.
Huge. So this week's Everyday Hero is going to Wil Anderson's Helpful Friend. Alrighty, boys, that just about brings us to the end of another episode of the MacPack podcast. Definitely one of my favourite to date. Will's been an idol of mine for as long as I can remember. So the fact that we've had an opportunity to sit down and have a yarn has been absolutely unreal. You often speak on your podcast about having that plaque that says, if you could do anything in the world with the knowledge that you could not fail, what would you do and why? Yeah. That's very much been something that I've thought of for the longest time. You obviously have so many people come on and answer that. Do you have an answer for that?
I mean, I try to, well, firstly, I think it's like, you know, you ask something a lot of times and you realize the flaws in the question of like how you ask something sometimes, which is that, you know, the idea of failure is so intrinsic to the like motivation to try. You know, if you knew you could not fail, would it be worth trying regardless, right? I think that I do try to make choices that are for my own reasons. And so the way I want to answer this is kind of like this, which is that a few years ago, I decided that all I really wanted to do was get better at what I do. And in a way, you can't fail if like your aim is just to get better at what you do, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, because everything that I do is in service of that. So even if the lesson I've learned is this was not the way forward, or this thing I tried today did not work, then that is a great lesson learnt from that like idea of trying something. Yeah. Because my idea is I just want to it's not about getting to a point in my career or achieving a thing or doing a particular thing. It's just getting as good at what I do as I possibly can on a daily basis. And so in a way, that is how I answered that question for myself, is that I came up with a way of a worldview where I could approach it so that there is no chance of failure. Because yes, absolutely there is failure constantly. And it is the thing that makes striving worthwhile.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the failure is also welcomed. It might hurt initially, but it is so welcomed into my process because it is the thing that also keeps driving me, and it is interesting and it teaches me so much. So I mean, part of what I'm doing right now is part of that mantra. You know, I came here to Perth last year not knowing whether I could do like every night doing a different show. I didn't know if I could do that or not. And like, to be honest with you, last year it was kind of like 75 to 80% of a new show every night. And then like, you know, I would find that there would be like things that would repeat, or like a story that would come in, or like a whatever it might be. Yeah. So then I came into this year going, well, I want to be talking to audience members 5 minutes into the show. I want to make sure that like every night when people see this, like 95% of this is completely different to like, and if there's anything that's repeated, it's going to be, that's just about me going, like I will fail doing that heaps of times. What would you attempt to do if you knew you could not fail? Well, I know that I will fail, but I am attempting to do this thing that I know I will fail doing with that attitude of attempting it as if I would not fail.
And I think that's the key. I think that's the key to the question. I don't think anyone ever sits there and goes, I won't fail, but it helps you get out of your own way. I think so many people are scared of failure in the first place. I know that I've used that very thing in our lives, and it's just like, this is what we want to do. But actually having that...
The reverse way is the way that I would really like to look at it, which is imagine that you are successful.
Yeah. What are you doing?
What are you doing?
Yeah.
And not like, what do I need to do to get to be successful? But you're already successful. What is the thing that you would love to be doing that got you all that success?
Yeah.
So if you don't want to be Mr. Beast, I don't encourage you to like sit around and go, I want to like do what Mr. Beast is doing. But imagine you're as successful as Mr. Beast, but from doing what?
Yeah. Okay.
Like, and that's what I always like to think is like, so me doing this stand-up, like the improv show, part of it was like, I'd like to show people that there is a way of doing crowd work that isn't what Matt Rife and people like that do. Now, that isn't me saying that what they're doing, it doesn't have value or isn't valid and or isn't successful and whatever. It's just me saying, what would I like to achieve? Which is, I'd like to show people that there's another way of doing this, and I would like this to be work really well, and I'd like it to feel like this. Now, does that always work? No, that's the failure bit, right?
Yeah.
But the thing is me imagine if I was really successful at this and people thought it was amazing, what would I want it to be? And then do that and hope that you can then find out a way to make that successful.
I think the way I think about that question as well is like, I think about it and then I think, oh, that's what I would want to do.
Yeah.
And then you think, oh, I should try and do that, because when you think about it, you're like, it would be worth failing at that.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I get out of it.
Yeah. Could I do that now? Is that a thing? That thing that I would do if I thought I couldn't fail? Because I think sometimes the reason I ask the question is I think that it's the idea of failing that stops people from attempting.
100%.
So if you can take that idea of failure out, so that's why the question is interesting to me, which is what would you attempt to do if you would, knew you couldn't fail, is take the failure out. Then acknowledge in your mind what you'd attempt to do. Another way to ask it is, if money was no object, what would you be doing with your time? If the answer is something you could already be doing, then and often it is. Like often you think you need more when you already almost have what you need to make something. I think that every night. And I think, well, maybe tonight I learn something or I unlock something or I work out something because we've taken the idea that failure will stop it. The one thing I have certainly learned over 31 years of doing this is that I have failed as many times as maybe probably more than I have had success. And, my career is one in which people have kind of if you look at it externally, probably go, oh, that's been a reasonably successful career. And I would still say that, I fail much more than I succeed. And if I look at back when I first started, the amount of power I let failure have over me, the amount of things I did not try or attempt to do because I thought that failure would have such disastrous consequences. Whereas now I know that who cares? No one cares. No one really cares if you got to fail in a pretty big and spectacular way to not be, you can slap someone at the Oscars and they'll still give you an Oscar.
Exactly right.
You can punch the host and they'll still give you a trophy 20 minutes later. It's rare that, mistakes really rule you out of anything.
Exactly right. I think that caveat really does help people getting it out of their own way. Because the true question is what would you do?
Yeah. What would you like to be doing?
Yeah.
I have more books than I, and I buy books all the time. And I was talking to a therapist once and, I was talking to them about that, the fact that I buy books all the time, even though I don't have time to read as many books as I buy. And they said, you just buy for the life that you wish you live instead of the life that you currently live. Yeah. But what a great insight that was to me, because you know what would make me happy? Just having time to read the books that I have. That's not a huge thing to be able to achieve, And so sometimes I think we get we think that our goals are actually bigger than they are too, whereas some of what our goals might be actually much more achievable. Not all of them. Sometimes it's good to have big dreams and big goals and stuff as well. But I think sometimes people think, oh, when this happens, I'll be able to do this. Whereas sometimes you're able to do what you want to do right now.
Yeah. 100%. On your philosophy podcast, we'll basically close on this. Is you ask everyone what their philosophy is. What's yours?
I mean, I don't really answer this just because I feel like if I lock in one, then I'm judging everybody else's based on it. But I've got a few like little things that I, so you asked me before if I have a tattoo. I have one tattoo. It's a jigsaw puzzle piece that is on my left shoulder here, just there. It's like a little jigsaw puzzle piece. So I have this little like, it's less a sort of like life philosophy, but I don't know if you've ever done jigsaws, but basically it's a blue jigsaw piece is mine. So an ocean basically is probably what I imagine it to be, but it could be anything really. But if you're doing a jigsaw, the hardest bits to do are the ones that are all just blank big bits that look like each other, if you're doing an ocean or a floor or whatever it might be. And the trick to doing a jigsaw puzzle basically is like, you can do it in all sorts of different ways. That's the great thing about a jigsaw puzzle. But like the real trick is, you find the edge bits first and then you're like, but when you get to the bits that are all the bits where you're like, I'm never going to be able to find which bit goes next to each bit. The trick is that you just find the one piece that goes next to that piece. You can't think about the 1,000 pieces of the jigsaw puzzle that you got to put all together. But here's what I know about doing jigsaw puzzles, and here's what I know about life is that you can do a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle just by finding the piece that goes next to the other piece. It might take you longer, but you can do it. And so that's what I always come back to is the idea of like whenever I'm stuck on anything is just like, okay, well just let's stop thinking about the 1,000 pieces. Yeah. That's too much right now. Let's just find that piece that goes next to the other piece and then find the piece that goes next to that piece and see where that takes you. And so is that a life philosophy? No, but it is something that I think about a lot.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. So good. Will, before we do finish up, with everyone that comes on the podcast, we award them with a VIP MacPack cap. Mm-hmm. Now, every single cap comes with a...
VIP's doing some heavy lifting.
VI pack.
Yeah.
with a it's got an embroidered number on it, similar to like a test match
of like
cap.
how many people have been on the...
Correct. So you're joining the VI pack at number 38.
Welcome to the club.
38. Wow. Okay. 38 in. Now... Yeah. Look, if we were having a re-ranking just based on...
We're not doing a draft.
If we were doing power rankings. If you were starting again and you were starting the podcast from scratch and you had the opportunity like to only pick as guests from the people who already have hats, right? Like, but you get to reorder at this point. Like, am I getting top 5? Would I be in the top 5?
Yeah, well, we run the cap system. So the top 10 caps are internal. So we have to have some of the caps.
Oh, yeah, internal caps.
You can't have
We're
the
1,
caps.
2, 3.
Yeah. Okay, you're 1, 2, 3.
We are 1, 2, 3.
Mum and dad are 4, 5.
Mum and dad are 4 and 5.
Yeah,
they were also guests though.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, okay, that's all right. Yeah, okay.
And then 6 through to 10. Yeah. Exclusive internal caps that we've never given out.
Yeah. Oh,
so the actual
there is actually yeah, right. So there's a chance I could get 6 to 10. That's what we're saying.
Absolutely.
You're saying there's a 6
it's a
that's got my
position.
name on it.
Yeah, it's a vacant position. Absolutely.
I mean, it should be on like a rotating 6 for.
Oh, you take a bat.
Yeah, like 6 is more like your perpetual trophy that you get for until there's a better 6.
Best guess.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And then you have to like send it back in. You're like, I'm sorry, mate.
When we get Adam Hills on.
Yeah. Just like have to re-embroider.
But yeah, you are joining the pack at number 38.
Well, I don't mind that actually, and I like the 38. I think that's a good fun vibe. It feels like I wasn't too desperate.
Because we have reached out in the past, and we're incredibly lucky to have you on the podcast. But you could have had a higher number. If you got back to us earlier.
No, I feel like this is good. I'm getting in at the right time. There's a bit of heat around it,
Yeah.
I like to there be a couple of people that you can point me to that have already been on.
Yeah, okay.
Where I can go, oh, yeah, okay, I like them, and if they did it, then I can do it. I don't want to be the person that you're using to recruit other people. Because then people are like, I did this podcast because Will did it. Oh, I hated it.
Oh, that's so good. Will, it has been an absolute pleasure.
The way we finish every show, Will, is Jake will run us up at the end here.
Oh, yes.
And I'll usually say, go give your mum a hug. Can we get you to say that line this time?
Yeah, of course.
We'll maybe give him a tap on the knee. 'Cause
Yeah,
we've had a few,
all right.
we've had a
Yeah.
few false starts recently.
All
Ray
right.
O'Leary false started
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
quite
fair.
early.
You have my permission to touch me on the nose. Go give your mum a hug is what we're saying,
That's
right?
the one.
So it's
Okay.
genuinely been the biggest pleasure. As I said, like you've been a hero of mine for approaching 17, 18 years now. So ever since the second episode of Gruen that I ever saw, I basically consumed everything of yours. So it's genuinely been like one of the biggest honors to have you on the podcast, mate. So thank you so much.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Boys, until we do this time next week, stay safe, stay blessed, and always remember to
Go give your mum a hug.
ciao for now, but not forever.